And I am dancing because Orlando Sanchez is back in town. That's why I'm dancing.
The whole state is dancing.
Oh my God, the whole world
You're
is
not the only
dancing.
one that's happy that I'm back.
No, the whole world is dancing. I mean, really, really, it's hard to admit, but I was missing you.
I know.
And I texted you
I'm glad you
yesterday.
admitted it publicly.
No, of course. I mean, no shame at all. I really miss you, and I miss you that much. And yesterday, I left Vidal Martinez, the Harris County judge candidate for the Republican nomination, and I was in a beautiful event, Women for Vidal Martinez. And we were there and we were holding signs, and it was a big, big turnout. I love it. We're going to have, I'm sure that in the social media of Vidal Martinez, they already have some pictures. We were recording some videos for him. So I left that, and then okay, I'm sure Orlando is back in town.
No, I was back in the
But you
state.
were back in town, and then you went to
Yeah.
San Antonio.
Unlike you, I'm not partying, I'm working.
Of
And
course, yes.
I had the pleasure of being in Pittsburgh, Texas. I didn't even know there was a Pittsburgh, Texas, but it's in Camp County, and the Camp County Republicans invited me to come speak to them. They had a great turnout, and it was great to be in Camp County. Learned a lot of things about Camp County, not the least of which is that's the home where Bo Pilgrim got started. You know, Pilgrim's Fried Chicken. And the founder of Cavender Boots and Mr. Shelby, who designed the engine that went into the Ford, is from Pittsburgh, Texas. And the man that flew the first flight from Los Angeles to New York across the United States, also from Pittsburgh, Texas. So, you know, it was
Wow.
exciting. And then last night, I had the pleasure to be back in San Antonio in Bexar County, and they had a great turnout for an event for the current chairman of the Bexar County Republican Party. But what was exciting was the turnout. There was a lot of people that turned out. A lot of Tejanos, a lot of Latinos were there. And it was a good mix of people. There's a lot of excitement in Bexar County. And I think there's going to be some really surprising things that are going to happen. You know, we were excited about what happened down in South Texas, right? We knew that was going to happen because of the crises on the border. But I really do think that there's going to be some changes in Bexar County. So I'm excited about that. You know, and that's already started. We got John Lujan elected.
Exactly.
And so we've got some great candidates in San Antonio running for Congress and running for district attorney, running for all the positions. So anyway, I'm excited about
Very
that.
excited. Well, welcome to TLC Live, everybody. I'm sorry about all the viewers. I need to welcome first Big O.
Yes.
Very well known as a Big O.
Yeah.
So, bienvenidos a TLC Live as every Wednesday. Today we have an amazing show talking about candidates, Latino candidates, and a conservative side with the values and fighting for our kids, fighting for our families. Today we have three different candidates and in three different school districts for different positions, but they're all in the conservative side, and they are Latinos also.
The right side.
The right side, of course. So we have Rick Garcia for Fort Bend ISD, position 3. We have also Victor Perez for Katy ISD, School Board, position 1. And we have John Perez for for the Spring Branch ISD, Board of Trustees, position 6. I am also in a Spring Branch, so I will vote for you because we already start early voting this week, and elections, it's May 7. So I can vote only on my district, but I want to encourage everybody that is in other districts to go and vote. Not many people knows about this election, May 7,
Yeah.
and it's very important because it's the school districts.
Well, last night in San Antonio, I told the folks in San Antonio that I know everybody gets excited about November 2022, but the most important elections happening right now, and the most important elections ever, are your school board trustees. Because they're the people that are going to set the direction and the policy and the budget, not only for the biggest taxing authority that you'll see on your tax bill this year, but also the future and what your children are going to be taught. So the most important races are happening right now, May elections, and we have Fort Bend, we have Spring Branch, and Katy ISD. So welcome, gentlemen. Why don't we start with...
We can start with...
let them introduce themselves. So
Yeah.
let's start with Rick Garcia. Rick, take about a minute to tell us about you. You know, your 1 minute elevator speech, and then we'll move over to Victor.
Sure. Sure. So my name is Rick Garcia. I'm running for Fort Bend ISD, position number 3. I'm a former Fort Bend ISD educator, my first job out of college. My wife is also a teacher for the district, and I have 2 boys that attend Fort Bend ISD schools. And I'm running because I love the district, and I am here to serve our community. I'm on the HOA, and I'm on the mud board, and I do a lot at the school level and at the district level advocating for our kids. So thank you for having me.
Great. And we got a picture of your beautiful family up. So
Oh yeah.
congratulations and thank you for taking time out to be a public servant. So I guess Victor, tell us a little bit about you. I understand that you eat black beans, ropa vieja, picadillo. Is that true?
Yeah, I was born in Cuba, and I left there with my family in 1960 when I was 7 years old, and so I grew up there, and I went to college at Virginia Tech on a football scholarship. And yes, I eat black beans as much as I can. My wife, who is American, eats she makes the best black beans in the family, and I make the roast leg of pork, every Christmas Eve.
Lechon.
So
We
I
did a
recently
competition between Orlando and your wife on the black beans because he always claimed that he made the best
I
ones.
call those bean offs.
Well, we have a competition with my wife and my brother, who thinks he has the recipe, but I think my wife has it.
Yeah,
But
well,
anyway,
he's a smart man saying that.
I'm going to tell you
He has
guys,
to say
I got to
that.
tell you guys, every Cuban thinks they have the best flan, the best black beans, the best ropa vieja, it's like the best things in the world come from Cuba because, they're very, egocentric,
No, really?
egomaniacal.
No, really. So
Yeah, but anyway,
we
go
have one
ahead.
of the best things in the world coming from Cuba,
Yeah,
just right here.
yeah, exactly. Go on, Victor. Tell us a little
but
bit
actually,
more
my,
about you.
my favorite is actually the plantains. Actually, the maduros. Those are actually
Yeah,
my favorite. But
yeah, with
anyway,
the crispy
we'll,
ends,
we'll,
right?
Me
we'll
too.
move on from that. I recently retired a couple of years ago after a career in, first of all, banking, and then secondly, for about 25 years as a CFO for several oil service companies, public companies. So I have a lot of experience, if you will, in budgets and financial analysis and debt markets and that kind of thing. So I retired from that. We raised our 3 kids. My wife of 47 years and we raised our 3 kids here in Katy. And now we have 4 grandkids here in Katy. And so I have skin in the game. I'm very interested in the future of our children. I'm very interested in protecting our children from inappropriate, vulgar material that might be in the classroom. I'm all about protecting them and protecting them against, identity politics in the classroom. And I'm also one of the things that's big here is the teachers, that we need to really support our teachers. So I have no other ambition or agenda. I'm retired, and I want to really devote myself to really making a difference in the school board and making a difference to the future of our kids.
Wonderful. And then let's go over to Spring Branch Independent School District. And John, give us the 1 minute elevator speech.
Sure, Andrea, and Orlando. Thanks for having us on. Thanks for making time for us. First off, I've been in the district for 21 years. I grew up overseas. I was born in Carrizo Springs, but my dad was a diplomat, so I grew up overseas and spent a lot of time in educational systems outside of the U.S. So I benefited from that. Came back to the U.S. to go to university at Rice University. Got my chemical engineering degree and my MBA from there. Great school. It has served me well. I value education quite a bit. And really, what got me charged up to run is I started seeing things in our classrooms that shouldn't be there. As a conservative Hispanic, as a conservative Catholic, there are a lot of us that just want to make sure that our schools are not just safe, physically, but also spiritually and mentally, right? So when I have things that are working against what I'm trying to do at home with my family, I'm going to stand up, push back, hold the line, and get us back to classroom neutrality on things like CRT, SEL, DEI. So that's point number one. Point number two is we got to keep our good teachers, and we got to find more good teachers. We have a lot of excellence in SBISD. I want to protect that and keep that, and I want to make sure that we're a good brand and we're attractive to the best teachers in the world. The third one is our recapture formulas just don't work for urban districts like SBISD. Not sure that they ever really worked for us, but they especially don't work for us because of the dichotomy, the difference in disparity of how we have to educate different students across our district. So I'm really passionate about working with state legislatures and Senator Paul Betancourt to make sure that we can change the formulas and make sure we keep more of our tax dollars here and serve all of our students in SBISD.
I always say for all three of you, there's nothing more cruel that a society can do than to confine a child to a failing school or an underperforming school. I don't think that anyone goes into the industry of pedagogy teaching thinking they're going to be millionaires, but the salaries that our teachers are making really need to be looked at, and the state of Texas needs to have take a strong look at that, because that's how we're going to attract teachers. But here's the problem. Many school districts, and I'll refer to my own school district because I live in the Houston Independent School District, bloated budgets, highly paid superintendents, and a plethora of assistant superintendents. You know, they got thousands of assistant superintendents. They've got tremendous overhead, and very little of it gets into the classroom. You got underperforming school. You got 5 failing schools that have been failing for years. And so the question is, I think the public is willing to pay a little more in property taxes, perhaps, if the quality of education increases. But I'm wondering if we can increase the quality of education by trimming budgets, by saving money, by applying conservative principles to the budget. Because at the end of the day, that's our highest tax rate. I mean, I used to serve on the Houston City Council, and I was always amazed that the HISD budget was almost as big, if not bigger, than the city of Houston. City of Houston, 650 square miles. And so, you know, are these bloated budgets affecting the classroom? If so, what can you guys do? What are your opinions to increase pay and quality of education? Increase pay for the teachers, not administrators. And so we'll go back to the top, and we'll begin. Let's say.
Let's start with Rick, and then we go Victor, and then John.
So Fort Bend ISD, about 85.9, 86% of the total budget is salary and benefits. It's a huge undertaking. So you only have remaining 15% to operate the rest of the district. And my professional career, I'm in IT. I was a former teacher, but I'm in IT, and I'm all about working smarter and more efficiently. I know that the current problem with Fort Bend ISD is we do spend a lot of money on things that we aren't really using. So there's some software programs that were purchased at the beginning of the year for STAR interventions that to the tune of $2.1 million, still not being used to this day, or it's one of those things that you can't use during work hours. So teachers either have to come in early or stay late after school to use and teachers don't want to do that, and parents don't want to have their kids staying after school for those things when they could be doing during the school day. So there's a lot of pork, as you say. Some of the districts are top heavy. I think Fort Bend ISD is probably the exception to that. They run sort of lean and mean, but there's always room for improvement in certain areas. Efficiency is key, and making sure that we're getting a return on investment on everything that we're spending, from software to services to vehicles, everything. That's one of the things that I've done very well over my years serving on the MUD and the HOA where I live.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll let Victor jump in on this, but one of the things that, we do have candidates that are running for, compared to the HISD, these are pretty good school districts. These are where the people are moving to.
Yeah.
When they become upwardly mobile from an economic perspective, they'll move out to Fort Bend, they'll move out to Katy, or they'll move into Spring Branch, because these are better performing school districts, but every school district can do better. So Victor, what are things that we can do in Katy to improve the quality of the classroom education and improve teacher salaries?
Right. So one, the big item for me is on the teacher side, in that KISD teachers are underpaid. I've looked at this, and they are underpaid relative to the surrounding districts. And we know that there's a teacher shortage statewide. We know there's a teacher shortage around the country, that teachers are leaving the profession. Morale is low, and I've looked at numbers that show that compared to the surrounding districts on average, the more experienced teachers in Katy, say 20 years plus, would need about a 5 to 5.5% increase on average to equate to the average of the surrounding districts. And then that number is maybe 2 to 2.5% for the beginners, or say up to 5 years. And so in between there's different percentages, but we're definitely fighting this battle of retaining and attracting teachers with our hands tied behind our back, if you will, by underpaying our teachers. There's always, the only time we ask is, where's the money going to come from? It seems to be when we talk about teacher salaries. And we need to find the money. I would not be in favor of increasing taxes. We need to find the money in the existing budgets. And we need to give the teachers, at least get them up to averages that for the surrounding districts. We need to spend the money within the four walls of the classroom. What will make a difference, and really help the teachers also with, they're loaded up with a lot of administrative paperwork, and we need to help them to teach, to do what they do best. In other words, the campus leaders and the teachers know what's best for their particular situation, their particular classroom situation, and so we need to free them up to teach, to increase their salaries, and to really help the support staff and the teachers that are working day to day with the kids on the front line. And that's what we need to do to increase the morale of the teachers, help them, and I think that improves the quality of education.
Yeah, and John, again, let me just say, I have to say that I think your school districts, both Katy, all three, Katy, Fort Bend, and SBISB, are certainly being better run than HISD. It wasn't long ago that we found out that one of the administrators, not at Houston Independent School District, was indicted along with several other people, including a trustee, for swindling $6 million of taxpayer money and giving contracts, these bogus contracts, landscaping contracts, to their buddies. That's just unacceptable. And they tell you all the time there's no money for teachers, but yet they're getting indicted for, inappropriate contracting worth $6 million of taxpayer money. John, what are your ideas of trimming your budget and improving teacher pay?
No, sure, Orlando. So one thing I bring to the table that I know other folks in the race don't is I run an engineering company. I have for the last 20 years. Very familiar with budgets, profit loss. I'm responsible and accountable to my employees and our organization to make sure that we rationalize our expenses and we're generating profit. So when I look at our school district and when I look at our operations, yes, we have a constrained budget. Yes, we have to try to find money in that constrained budget, but I certainly want to walk in, start looking behind the curtain and saying, where can we cut back? There's always room. There's always ways to find more money for those folks that we need to keep and for those folks that we need to recruit. There are also different ways to have raises too, right? I think Victor brought up the point that our teachers seem to be overloaded. When I reach out and when I'm block walking or come across teachers in the neighborhood at different meet and greets, they're overloaded. They have too many tasks that are really distracting them from doing things in the classroom that are fundamental educational basics. And I'm not just talking about paperwork. I'm talking about other programs that quite simply just have no place in our classroom and are taking away valuable time with students that need our teachers' focus. So really offloading tasks, making sure that they get time back to their lives, just like we have times to go to the Little League games and spend time with homework on our kids. We need to make sure we get that time back to our teachers as well. The other thing I'd like to just point out real quick is, once again, you're going to hear me harp on this over and over again. One way to get money back is by not giving it up. And right now we're giving up a lot of money. We're number 10 in the state as far as our recapture price tag, even though our enrollment is number 34, 35. Something's definitely not working with the formula. We're giving up a lot of money. Our price tag is going to start creeping up to 70, 80, 100 million. And we're at the point now where we have to get reform and we have to get it quick. And I'm not talking about in the next 3 or 4 years. I'm talking about next year. And that will certainly bring back money to provide programs and educational services to kids across our district. And also, you have to realize there's a hidden cost that parents are supplementing when they're having to get tutors because we're just not able to bring in additional resources. I mean, you can say that easily $2 million a year in Spring Branch alone by parents that are supplementing their kids' education with tutors. So yes, we have to find the money. Definitely have good ideas. Looking forward to getting on the board and making them happen.
Guys, I have a question. I've been reading recently some of the school districts in Texas and along the country that they're saying that they have to go on a 4-day school, school days. And, Fridays, they're going to go only from Monday to Thursdays because they're short in teachers, they're short in budget. And why you guys think this is happening? And if you think that will be effective in the school district that you guys are running for? Start with Rick.
So that's something that just came up. It is actually a pretty interesting concept. I sit on one of the committees that helps decide the school calendar for Fort Bend ISD, and you have contract hours that teachers have to fulfill. And then, of course, the state mandates that all children have to be in school so many hours, and then you get so much money from the state. So that's actually interesting how they're actually able to do that. If it's more of there's a shortage and we just can't support the time and the kids in the classroom because we just don't have teachers. We have to shuffle teachers around. That's a very unique problem. Something that it's unheard of. And there is a recent study of graduates graduating from high school, only 3% of them are considering a field in education. So that's an additional problem. Take that, compound that onto the already existing shortage of teachers we have, and then in 4 years, we're going to be an even bigger problem. So I applaud the districts for trying to do something that's a little bit more innovative and creative. But the other thing you have to consider is what are that Fridays off? What are parents having to do with their child?
Right.
For daycare, so there's an additional component there. So those are really some things you have to think all the way through and think of both sides of the equation. But if it's mostly because there's a shortage of teachers, that's a major issue. And if it trickles down to the larger school districts, yeah, you're going to see some major problems.
Yeah, my biggest concern is with the families with economical needs that they have to have 2 or 3 jobs. And when you have kids in high school, you can manage for them to be by themselves at home. But when you have little kids in elementary, what is the options for these parents? And it's really effective that kids will learn what they need to learn in only 4 days a week.
Yeah, so it is difficult, and one of the things that I'm advocating for is all day, full day pre-K. So for those kids that I know we're getting there, and the school districts are offering it, but as a paid service. But I want the state to jump in, provide additional money for all day, full day pre-K, so we can get our kids learning reading at a very early age. And the studies show that if you're reading before 3rd grade, efficiently, then you have a much higher degree of graduating from high school and being successful. But if you're having struggles at past 2nd grade, 3rd grade, then the percentages go up, that dropout percentage. So,
That's a fascinating comment because I remember one year I was at Rice University and I was at a panel that was talking about education, and somebody did mention that. Generally, I know Republicans, conservatives don't want to spend more money than is necessary, and they look at school districts as a waste of money. But so when you mention early childhood education, Republicans or conservatives tend to recoil. Oh, that's just government spending more money. But actually, you're absolutely correct. The statistics show that a wealthy family's children, before they enter kindergarten, here's a vocabulary, I'm just going to say a number, about 10,000 words. But a child in a low-income family with parents that may not have graduated from high school, may not have gone to college, are educationally challenged, as they would say, don't hear 10,000 words. Their vocabulary isn't nearly as big. So why wouldn't we as a society invest to make sure those children have an equal footing with kids that come from wealthier families? That's something I've never understood from a lot of, folks in the Republican Party. Why are we so opposed to giving every child an even start at the gate for the race?
Let's move with Victor on.
Yeah,
on
let's see. I'd like to see
Yeah,
where you guys are on that.
I have not heard anything about the 4-day school week or any discussion about that here in Katy. And I think that would be very, very unpopular for sure with parents, because we saw what a disaster the remote learning, quote unquote learning, which didn't really happen during the shutdown. And so that would be highly, highly unpopular. What we've seen is that classroom sizes have increased, and because of the shortage of teachers, we have they've had to add support staff, to help the teachers, of course, with the increased class sizes. We should aim ultimately, if we get things right with teachers and add teachers, we should be aiming towards lower classroom sizes, not increased classroom sizes. So what's been happening is the classroom sizes have been creeping up, and that's something that's huge, that just really affects the quality of education when you have these much larger classroom sizes, and that's what's happened. And so we need to aim ultimately as a goal to decrease classroom sizes, hire more teachers, not to cut back on the amount of time they're in school. That would really be bad for the quality of education, and it would be bad for the parents. Would not like that, and of course the working parents. It would be where you have two parents working. That would be really bad for them. To now, what do they do when the kids are at home on Fridays or whatever day of the week it is?
Okay, let's move with John with the same question.
Sure, I have to echo what Rick and Victor are saying. I heard about the 4-day week. That was in localized spots, resource constrained districts. I understand that. I appreciate that need for creativity, because if you don't have the resources, you then have to start getting creative with your solutions. So I appreciate that. I would be very careful to start trying to broad brush that solution across the state, especially in SBISD. We have a tapestry of families and their origin stories, and we have families that may be able to work just fine with a 4-day week. But I would, echo what Victor said, where I think for the most part, you're going to want to maintain that 5-day work week. Make sure that families with not just two working parents, but with parents that have a schedule that just a single parent that doesn't afford that flexibility. We just have to be careful about trying to apply that solution elsewhere. For me, it goes back to, like we were just talking about, making sure our districts are quality brands that are attractive to teachers, not just from Texas, but from across the nation, right? I know Katy is trying to be successful in trying to recruit from outside the state. I would like to see us get more creative with our recruiting and bringing in good teachers, so that we don't have to mess with classroom sizes and keep them at a good, effective level, rather than start trying to decrease the time a student has in the educational system with respect to early age fundamentals. Rick's right. If we can get them learning English, reading, writing, doing the basic math by third grade, uh, their their trajectory for success is much better off than if we try not to do that. So I think, especially in those early years, every minute, every hour we can get them in the classroom with effective instruction is very important, very critical.
Not only are the children better off, John, but I think society is too. I think we have to build less prisons. We have a more productive society. We have a better workforce if children are on equal footing when they start school. So I'm assuming that you guys are all for giving kids that come from economically challenged families who have a limited vocabulary the opportunity to catch up with their cohorts, let's say, in other families. Is that correct? Is that what I hear?
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
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 Okay, great. Now,
And I want to encourage everybody that is listening to this show. If you want to get involved, you want to you have any questions to our guests, please call us at 281-833-3333, 281-833-3333. I want to move to a topic that is, for me as a mom of teenagers that they are in high school, are becoming the real pandemic after the pandemic, and it's indoctrination and CRT. This is a biggest challenge that I think you guys are gonna face, besides the budget, and everything that is going on in education, because this is not only happening in Texas, this is not only happening in your school district, but this is along the country and probably along the world.
Yeah. And before you guys get into indoctrination and CRT, let me make an editorial comment because I'm famous for making this is an
Big O.
Yeah, this is an O opinion. You know, the O in my name is not for Orlando, it's for opinion. First of all, I don't know. I asked the smartest man I know in politics, what is CRT? He says he didn't know what CRT is. I know we call it critical race theory, but what is that? And we're going to have a show dedicated to CRT to find out what is CRT, because I think different people have different ideas of what CRT. Anything that emanates out of Ivy League schools, you know, at Harvard or Yale or Princeton, you know, you have to look at with this very suspicious eye. But I don't know what CRT is. Having come from Cuba, and I'm sure Victor can talk about this, we know full well what indoctrination is. We know full well what government indoctrination is. And so I want you guys to address Andrea's question from that perspective. If you think you know what CRT is, let us know. But if you're like me, I really don't know what CRT is, because let me just say this. If someone thinks that CRT is bad because we teach real history, and what I mean by real history is we teach that in the 1800s we used African slaves in this country for labor. That's history. I think that should be taught so it's not repeated. Much like the Jewish community always says, never forget, because we tend to repeat. And they'll always tell us about the Holocaust and Hitler and the Third Reich and what happened to the Jewish people in Europe. I think that should be taught. So I don't think that's, you know, CRT. Should we teach how poorly treated the Mexicans were in Texas after the Revolutionary War in 1836? Yes. Should we teach that there were only 3 Texans that signed the Declaration of Independence on the Brazos in 1836, and those 3 were Mexicans? Yes. Should we teach the contributions that Tejanos have made in Texas? Yes. And so, you know, but I don't think that we need to indoctrinate kids. We don't need to get African American children hating Caucasian children because, you know, the Caucasians were plantation owners. We don't need Hispanics hating African Americans. We don't need Asians. In other words, we're all Americans.
We don't need the hate, period.
Yeah, we don't need that hate. And I think parents are up in arms because parents don't want to teach. They want to teach us we're all Americans. We're all in this struggle together.
Yeah.
The pandemic affected Hispanics and Asians and blacks and Caucasians and the elderly and women and men. You know, tsunamis and floods and earthquakes affect us all. A bad economy, this inflation affects us all. So we're all in it together. We've all got to find solutions to the problems. But I am for teaching real history, which sometimes has been overlooked, glossed over, and but I'm not for indoctrination. So, having given my opinion, you guys are up.
Who wants to
So I
go
can
first?
start off.
Rick,
Yeah.
let's start it with Rick. Let's start it with Rick.
Yeah, I'll start off. So I when that comes up, I always say civics. Let's teach civics, not CRT. I don't believe it, and I don't subscribe to that. We don't teach that in our house. You know, I'm a former history teacher. I taught 7th grade Texas history, and yeah, you celebrate each other's differences. You celebrate that equality, that opportunities for everybody. And what I've always said is we bring back civics classes, and you teach our students how to be productive members of society, what it means to be an American citizen.
How did we lose civics? How did we come so far? Because when I emigrated to Houston from Cuba in 1962, I went to Shern Elementary School, and the first thing I did every morning was we said a prayer. I know that you can't force children to pray, but you can certainly have a moment of reflection. And number 2, we said the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States. I mean, how in just my lifespan have we come to this point? What happened?
Yeah, so a lot of it's out of who's on their state board of education. Your state board of education writes your TEKS, which is the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, and that is a partisan board. So if you've got more liberal members on the board that don't believe that civics is necessary, then civics gets taken out. And I have heard that there is a movement that they're going to be putting civics classes back in the curriculum, which is a great thing. I will also tell you that there are 2 bans on critical race theory at the state level. So it's not in the TEKS. It's not allowed to be taught, but that doesn't mean that it can't find its way into the classrooms. But sometimes it does, and that's why school board elections are so important. That you have certain members on the school board that may subscribe to it, and they may advocate for it on the back end to down to their teachers and their administrators. So it's definitely worth paying attention to the school board elections, making sure that we keep a lot of that out of the schools. Like I said, I believe that we celebrate each other's differences. We celebrate the culture. We celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, like we continue to do it, and talk about each other's contribution to society. And hate breeds hate. So if you teach hate, that's what kids are going to learn. And if you teach kids from an early age that and you see so many pictures of white kids and black kids and Hispanic kids playing together like color doesn't matter when they're at that age. They're just having fun and they're just playing. But then as they get older, they start to learn these things and they start to see these things. And it's society just beating this new image of how it's supposed to be in their head. And that's not what we want to do. We definitely want to move away from that. And hate, like I said, it's never a place in our schools.
Victor?
Okay, so I agree, definitely agree that we need to teach our history accurately. We need to teach about slavery. We need to teach about the civil rights movement. We need to teach about racism. So that's not, if you're opposed to CRT, it doesn't mean you're against that. You know, you still teach the history accurately. What CRT does is it basically is hyper focused on race, as opposed to the ideal of Martin Luther King, where we're all colorblind and we treat each other equally and we look at a man's heart. It's the opposite of that. That's not good enough for CRT proponents anymore. CRT proponents want to divide us according to race. And we don't need to divide kids or create resentment between kids based on their color of their skin. That is what I'm against, and that is we don't need to always be teaching. We don't want to be teaching, for example, that white kids are the oppressors, and that they can never atone for their sins of the past generations. We need to, and also that the kids of color, that they are oppressed and always victims. We need to teach unity. Not divide the kids according to the races, having the resenting each other. So CRT creeps in. CRT it doesn't, in the schools. It's not like they're teaching CRT like, hey kids, we're going to learn about CRT today. It's not that. It's much more subtle than that, and it creeps into a lot. It creeps into a lot of ways. Some of the, for example, bullying programs. Some of the bullying programs that existed in the past have kind of morphed into some sort of a CRT, type of program. So there's lots of little ways that we need to basically look for CRT being implemented. So that's what I think about CRT, and we don't need to teach kids to hate America. That's what I'm against. Let's not teach kids to hate America. Let's teach them to be united. And my granddaughter, for example, kept talking. Because she lives close by. My granddaughter kept talking about her friend that she would go over and play with, her best friend in class, etc., all year long. And come to find out, at the end of the school year, we find out that her friend was black, and it didn't matter to her. And they're best friends, and that's how it should be, not to be hyper focused on race.
Yeah, I mean, Victor, that reminds me of a story. When my daughter was growing up, her best friend was from Angola. Obviously, an African girl, and just we had her at the house all the time. We never thought about color. For
Of
God's
course
sake,
not.
she was a human being, the sweetest person, and I'm delighted to say that they're still friends, and that's the way it should be. All right, John, you're up.
Yeah, what a day to pick CRT to talk about. I actually just spent the last 2 days working with my school because we had a CRT assignment. Teacher overstepped a boundary, and the assignment was given out to my daughter, another son of one of our candidates, and it escalated. People like to say CRT is not in our classrooms. I think it's the greatest sleight of hand. It's kind of like the devil convincing us he doesn't exist. Um, you know, CRT's here. To anyone who wants to claim that it's not, well, just ask my high school principal for my kids. He acknowledged that the assignment was inappropriate and overstepped the bounds. So I'm not going to challenge his integrity. I trust him. I have his back. But at the same time, what I do want to throw out there, Orlando, you asked, how did we get here? We had a portion of society that was very trusting, that was focused on raising their families the right way, being productive citizens, per the civics courses we took that Rick was talking about. And we believe that our educational system was doing the right thing, teaching the right stuff, focused on fundamentals in our classrooms. And we took our eye off the ball, and our boards have been, I would say, I'm not going to say taken over or hijacked, but we've actually allowed our boards to start funneling and allowing this leadership and culture to occur. At the end of the day, what drives an outcome is the behavior. What drives a behavior is a culture. What drives culture is leadership. At the end of the day, the leadership of an educational system in your district is the board. They hold the superintendent accountable. And so when you start seeing things pervasive in our educational system, it's coming from the leadership, the servant leadership that the board is supposed to provide. And so at the end of the day, when you start looking for where did this happen, that's where it occurred. Moral relativism that makes everything okay has led to a society where, well, if everything's okay, then nothing's bad. And now all of a sudden, you can start using that bully, that victim card on everything. And so systemic racism with respect to CRT is how that's coming into play. So we get into our classrooms. My dad was a migrant worker. He traveled from Texas all the way up to Illinois. That's where our family is. It'd be a very interesting lesson, like you said, if I were in there and what they taught me was, oh, my dad was a migrant worker. He worked in the fields. It was tough work. And all of his bosses were terrible white guys. Right? I'm pretty sure my dad does not want that to be the lesson I learned. Right? And I talked to my dad today, and it was interesting. He ran for mayor for Carrizo Springs twice, won. And we were talking about things going on. And one thing he told me, right, that really rings true is, hey, you never win by losing it. Right? You never win by losing your cool, losing your head, losing your character, losing your morals. You win on your merits, Orlando and Andrea, right? You win on your merits. You win on running faster, working harder, being smarter, valuing education. You don't win by playing the victim. You don't win by having seats handed to you at the table, right? You win by earning them.
Totally
And
agree.
at the end of the day, I just feel like CRT is, just a little erosion and corrosive mechanism on our society. And there's an agenda that folks love to have in our schools. And it's just time for us to, once again, you got to stand up, you got to push back, and you got to hold that line of classroom neutrality. I mean,
Yeah,
enough's
but
enough, quite honestly.
I got to tell you, I mean, I'm always fascinated at the patience and how long the runway is of the left and socialists around the world. These things are planned long time ago, and I asked the question, when did education go off the rails? From the time I emigrated to the United States, I didn't speak a word of English. But I went through the education process. I learned the pledge. I had a moment of silence. Actually, at those days, we said the Lord's Prayer, which I think is unfair to some children that are not believers and Jewish children. But there should be a moment of reflection for each individual to worship or give thanks or just to reflect on the coming day. That's a civic lesson that should be taught. But let me tell you, my opinion is that when they created the Department of Education at the federal government, can someone tell me where in the Constitution and in the enumerated powers it says that the federal government has a role in public education in the states? It doesn't. But when the states got in bed with the federal government, just like medicine, because medicine got in bed with the federal government. And if you want something screwed up that's working well in a local society, in a parochial environment, get in bed with the federal government. Sure to screw it up. They've screwed up the healthcare system. They've screwed up education. And that again is my opinion. But both of those in my lifetime have been screwed up because there's so many people that don't have access to a doctor. I think that you should go to get an X-ray, and it's no different than going to McDonald's. They ought to have a menu. CBC, a blood draw, a simple chest X-ray costs you this much. I don't know what's so complicated about it because they provide a service like Costco does. Costco provides a service. They'll change your tires. But they have a board that tells you how much it costs to change your tire. Why does medicine have to be so mysterious? Why does education have to be so mysterious? Because we chose to get in bed with the federal government, and they have an agenda. They have a big agenda, and that's what's dangerous.
Okay, we're
Okay,
going to
we
move
have
to
a
a question from
guys.
one of our viewers is
Okay.
asking
Paul
all of
James.
you.
Paul always watches the show. He has a question for you guys. What are your plans for restoring parental rights in our schools and engaging them for the best outcome in our students' educational journey? So, Rick.
So one of the things that needs to happen is it needs to become part of policy. The district has, over the years, they have a lot of community engagement, which is great, but sometimes a lot of the feedback goes on deaf ears. Now, that was a problem with school boundaries. It have all these school boundary committees, and then they would make all these recommendations, and they'd be great recommendations, but then the district would do something completely different. Now, what they've done is they have a school boundary oversight committee, which I'm the chairman of, and they've actually made it part of the process per policy. So, if we want to restore parental rights in our schools and getting them better engaged, it needs to be, and actually, it's on some of the objectives in Fort Bend ISD is to partner with parents. So we're making it part of policy. It's got to be part of the process, and community engagement, reaching out to parents is essential. And in some of our lower performing schools or low socioeconomic schools, it's challenging, very challenging, because they're working, they have their kids at school, and they don't have the same access that other parents might be able to. They don't have PTOs. The Title I schools, they'll have all their additional levels of funding, but it does become more difficult. Engagement is definitely key. I know that the district does send out emails and alerts and stuff like that, but sometimes you got so much stuff coming at you, it is just hard to reach that parent. But it does, and I've told my wife, I tell my all my friends and my family that it takes a village. So we've got to work together on getting more outreach. And a lot of times also parents don't even know what their rights are. So if they don't know that their child might be dyslexic, they're in second grade, they'll figure it out, or they're in third grade, they'll figure it out, or they're in fourth grade, they'll figure it out. I had a parent call me a month ago and said that they didn't find out that their child was dyslexic until seventh grade. And that's devastating, because you would expect that there's experts in the classroom, that some of these teachers can identify when they're seeing some of these things. My youngest was diagnosed in second grade, but we knew he was dyslexic kindergarten. Even though they say, well, they don't test them in first grade, they have to wait until their second grade, because they do need time for their minds and their brains to develop, and all of the reversals and things that they do. But my wife being an educator, me being a former educator, we just kind of knew that something wasn't quite right. And a lot of times parents also just don't know. They just think that that's natural, or the teachers will help them. So getting them more access to information and what exactly your rights are, what kinds of things can you request when you need services from the school? Can we get short assignments? Do we change our seating arrangement? Shorter questions, time length, and how long some of your tests are. So those are a tremendous question. It's a great question, and I really think it revolves around just that outreach and just giving parents more information. This is all a list of the services you can get. So,
Victor?
So I would say that the way you restore parental rights is you change the board, and that's why I'm running. And that's why I'm running is because I wouldn't be running if our board members were more responsive to parents speaking out, parental voice. Let's remember that they are the parents, children first, and the students of the district second. And we need to recognize that we need to recognize the parents' role in the education of their children. So what you do is you change the board. You change the board to be more responsive. I've found in speaking out at board meetings many times, and parents that I know that speak out at board meetings, that they're very, very frustrated because it's like they're speaking into a black hole and they're not heard and there's no responsiveness. So the first thing is to restore parental rights is elect candidates that believe in parental rights and that are going to respond to, that stand for parental rights, and that are going to be responsive to parents and their concerns, and not and also the board that recognizes that they are ultimately, the buck stops with the board in terms of delivering the quality education for the to the district and being good stewards and protecting the kids, protecting the assets of the district, and that they are the ones that oversee and manage, if you will, the district. The superintendent reports to the board. So you restore parental rights by electing board members that are sensitive to and will be responsive to parents. That's how you do that.
Well,
That's
and I
my
think it
opinion.
falls back to what John said. It's all about leadership. So, John, again, how do you involve the parents? And I want to comment, John, because you said, that we were too trusting, and allowed school districts to kind of run away with. I don't know that it was trust. I really think that we became comfortable. We became a little lazy. It's kind of like in the political environment in Texas. Conservatives find themselves, well, how did we lose the bulk of Hispanics to the Democrats? It's like we got lazy. We won. We ran the Democrats out of Texas after we beat Ann Richards, and we rested on our laurels. And as the demographics of Texas changed, we as conservatives weren't doing anything to reach out to the largest growing demographic in Texas. And now here we find ourselves in 2022 going, oh my God, if we lose the state, we'll never win the presidency. And so I really think that, some of us got a little lazy. I think parents need to get back up. But again, we want to hear your answer.
No, I think you're right, Orlando. So, I think there was, certainly a component of trust, as I said earlier. But what I was just going to kind of segue into here is the gap we have to close to really engage parents. Because at the end of the day, what we need to do is engage parents to, in some cases, get them back to the schools, at least in our district. Um, that's going to be hard work. And the easiest thing to do is absolutely nothing. The easiest way to operate is with apathy because it requires the littlest action. One of the mantras we have in our household is we do hard things. Right? And if you make that a habit, it's not a chore. It's not something that you have to rise to the occasion for. It's just something you do, right? We do hard things. And somewhere along the way, parts of our society lost that standard of excellence. It might be hard to become perfect, but you certainly find excellence along the way. One thing I'll throw out to is our boards, at least in SBISD, I don't know how it is in Katy or Fort Bend, they have meetings that are very theatrical. They have closed sessions. I was appalled when we actually buzzed a boy during opening comments who was praying, but his time limit got hit. His time limit was hit, so they buzzed him. I mean, my wife had to hold me down in my seat when that occurred.
Yeah.
But it's things like more town hall meetings, getting out to our civic club meetings, getting out to organizations and meeting points beyond that boardroom. Right? We serve the community. We have to get out there and be among them. And then we need technology that lets us see what our students are doing. Right now, we're switching from It's Learning to Canvas. I use Canvas at Rice. I'm excited by that. But we need the technology to let parents see exactly what their students are being assigned,
Yeah.
what the workbooks are, everything.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm appalled at the behavior. I've served for 20 years, in elective office, first on the city council, then in the county government, I welcome citizen input. I am appalled that some of these school districts, how they squelch parental participation because they don't like the discourse. They don't like the comments. They believe that the comments are too offensive and it hurts their feelings. So they'll buzz them. They'll cut off their microphones. I can't think of any. They'll bring in the law enforcement to drag a parents from the podium so that they won't have the opportunity to address the gods and the lords at the trustees' dais. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's how out of control education has gotten. I think, I agree with you. It's a matter of common courtesy. Even if someone is saying something we don't like, when I was on the city council, we extended their time to let them finish their sentence or their thought or their paragraph.
Right.
But they're dictatorial. This is what happens in the country I fled, in Cuba. I mean, they beat you and they haul you away. So you don't have the ability to express yourself in the public square. And the public square is that microphone in front of the trustees at every school board in the United States. And it makes me sick to watch these guys. Also, I want to tell you guys that I've been in public life for 25 years. That's how old I am, a quarter century. And I'm going to tell you guys something, the three of you. I've never seen three caliber candidates running for office at the level of which you have articulated your positions,
I love it.
your grasp of the issues on education. And I got to tell you that Fort Bend, Spring Branch, and Katy are extremely lucky to have these three candidates running for office, because let me tell you, I've been to candidate forums, I've attended presidential debates, I've done a handful of debates myself, and I've never seen anyone articulate issues like these three gentlemen. And for those that don't think that Hispanics give a crap and don't want to get involved, this is an example of how great the state of Texas will be into the future if you just simply go out and elect these three gentlemen to the local school boards that they're trying to represent. It's a great crop. You guys this has been one of the greatest programs that we've had. I mean, you guys,
and we have a lot of
you got
comments.
a lot
People
of
are
comments,
engaging.
people are
and
engaged,
so
so,
I love it.
you know-
Education is very important for all of us.
yeah, and so we're out of time. I wish we had 2 more hours to talk to you guys, because you guys are just absolutely brilliant. And the idea that you're so well educated, so well prepared, you have such great life experiences, and that you're willing to sacrifice to go take on a position that pays you nothing is amazing to me. So congratulations to all of you guys. And as
Thank you.
Andrea likes to say, I'm going to let Andrea say the last word.
Yeah, guys, we're running out of time. So call to action
30 seconds or
in
less.
30 seconds and less each one. Please tell us why to vote for you guys and when. Rick.
So I am a fresh face, a new perspective. I have a lot of experience. I know what's going on with the district. We have a rise in discipline problems. Teachers are leaving the profession record numbers, and I know how to help, and I know how to get us moving forward into the future. Early voting is now until May 3rd, also this Saturday, and Election Day is May 7th. You can go to voterickgarcia.com for more information. We have all the voting locations listed at the top. So thank y'all so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
And that's in Fort Bend ISD. Victor.
Fort Bend ISD.
Yes, I'm in Katy ISD, position 1. I am retired. I have no ambition, no side gig. I'm doing this purely for the children, to improve their education and to protect our children. And it's all for the good of the children. That's my only motivation. We also have voting at the same time as what Rick mentioned. And you can, for early voting, you can look at my website, which is Victor Perez for KatyISD.com. Victor Perez for KatyISD.com. We need everyone to turn out and vote. It's critical that we vote in this election. School board elections typically have very low turnout. So we need everyone to come out and vote. Thank you.
Victor, we're going to celebrate con frijoles y ropa vieja. Vamos, John.
Exactamente, sí. Y flan.
So John Perez running for position 6, SBISD Board of Trustees, recapture reform on my list of things to tackle, keeping our classrooms clean, depoliticize, desexualize them, making sure we keep the teachers that are great in our district and finding more. And at the end of the day, we're here to serve the students. Every student, we need fresh leadership. We need fresh hope, fresh perspective. I'm running with Lisa Alpe, who's going to take position 5, Caroline Bennett, who's going to take position 7, and John Perez, we're going to take position 6. We're going to take back our board. Early voting is now through next Tuesday. And election day is May 7th. If you're watching the Derby and you haven't voted in SBISD, get out to the polls. You still have time.
Again, I want to repeat, thank you very much, all of you, for the time that you have shared with us. We know you're busy in your elections right now, but I, again, want to repeat, I've never seen a better crop of candidates in my entire political career than these three gentlemen that have spent an hour of their time articulating important issues to the most important population that's going to affect the future, the present day and the future of the state of Texas, which is our children and the direction in which our children will be heading this in their lives, which will affect us in this state. So thank you again. God bless you all for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I just think you guys are amazing, and I hope to be able to call you all election night and congratulate you. And I'm going to tell you folks, again, my first political race for city council in Houston, I won by 114 votes. For those of you who don't think, it's at 5:30, 6 o'clock p.m., an hour before the polls close, that one vote doesn't make a difference. It sure as hell does. And if you want to take back your school district, why don't you do your community a service? When you go vote, drag somebody with you that believes the same way you do, and vote for these men that have been working extremely hard. Not just these three men, but there are other great candidates running for school boards across the state of Texas. Again, the most important race in the United States is your school trustee. It's not the president. How many times do you get to go address the president? Never. How many times do you get to talk to your senator? Not many. But how often can you go talk to your trustee down the street? Every day if you wanted to. These are the people that are going to affect your children, and these are the people that are going to affect the future of the state of Texas. So make sure you go vote, drag a friend out, go to their website. There's plenty of time, but get out and vote. So,
Thank
Andrea,
you so much, everybody. And
See you guys
I will
soon.
gonna go and vote for John today because I live in a Spring Branch. So, and I love early voting.
high five.
So,
right.
also
Bring
visit
some
us in
friends,
Texas.
Andrea.
Te tengo que conocer
Thank
en
you.
persona. We need to get together in person.
All right, guys.
Obviously.
Also, a program
Thank
note. We have our Mark. Do you have our? There we go. Mark's on top of it.
Cinco de Mayo, Cinco de
So,
Margarita.
we have our Cinco de Mayo celebrations. We're going to continue celebrating all of April because, as you all know, April 6th was Tejano Day in Texas. A resolution by the Texas Senate and the Texas House, which was signed by the governor. So every April 6th is Tejano Day in Texas. We had a great event in San Antonio, Texas, where the governor actually came. We had a Houston boy from the East End, Chingo Bling, who provided fabulous entertainment, had this governor in stitches, laughing so hard. And now we're going to bring Gary Hobbs, a great Tejano artist, who, by the way, Gary just signed a recording contract. It was a big deal on social media the other day.
Wow.
He's coming to Houston. He'll be at the West Wind Club, which is on Gun Road near 290. Free of charge. You must be 21 or older to attend. You must bring your driver's license.
Oh, I cannot
And
go in that case.
Yeah, you're too young. You must register on our website. Just click on that website. You'll go to our website. You'll see a picture of Gary Hobbs. Click on Gary Hobbs' picture and just register. All we want is your name, your phone number, your email, so we can verify who you are at the door. And we'll give you two adult beverage tickets. We have wonderful support from two of our great Houston distributors. I can mention them, which is Faust Distributing and Houston Distributing, both big supporters of the Tejano community. So we thank them for that. But and by the way, we're running out of tickets. We're almost at capacity. I think
Well, that's great.
I think there's less than 100 tickets left, Andrea.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So they're free of charge, but go to our website, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and click on Gary Hobbs' photo if you want to join us. The concert begins at 7. Gary will perform from 7 to 10 p.m., and then you can join your fellow Tejanos on really Cinco de Mayo that nobody celebrates in Mexico, but we do
Cinco de
here.
Margaritas.
Cinco de Margaritas.
Okay.
All right, guys.
And visit us in TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Nos vemos el próximo miércoles.
Bye.
Chao, chao.